There's one character in Chapter 5 that almost nobody talks about enough, and honestly, Chompkins. At first glance, Chum looks terrifying. He has a huge round body covered in thick red fur, giant yellow hands and feet, and a long, distorted head with uneven eyes staring in different directions. He also shares a lot of similarities with Huggy Wuggy and Kissy Missy. But there's one thing that makes him truly disturbing. His mouth isn't on his face. It's on the top of his stomach. A giant mouth filled with sharp teeth that can open wide enough to store objects, and even an adult human. When the player first meets Chum, he immediately tries to eat them. He clearly doesn't trust strangers, and throughout the chapter, he constantly stares at the players suspiciously, almost like he's waiting for them to betray him. But despite his terrifying appearance, Chum is surprisingly gentle. When the prototype suddenly appears, Chum quickly hides the player inside his stomach to protect them, and afterward, he gently pats the player on the head almost apologetically before sending them away. That single moment tells us a lot about who Chum really is, because underneath everything, he doesn't seem evil at all. In fact, Chum might actually be one of the softest characters in the factory. He's awkward, shy, quiet, and possibly unable to speak properly due to the placement of his mouth. Most of his dialogue sounds like muffled grunts instead of real speech. But once he trusts someone, he seems deeply loyal. He even gives food rations to Giblet, despite Giblet insisting he doesn't need charity. And considering how brutal life inside the factory has become, that small detail says a lot about Chum's personality. Back when Playtime Company was still active, Chompkins toys were originally created for children. But later, an orphan was turned into the experiment version of Chum as part of the Bigger Bodies initiative. His role was honestly disturbing. He was used as a living quiet corner for sensitive children. He would literally place children inside his mouth to calm them down. But according to the files, the children were terrified of him. After the Hour of Joy, Chum captured a Playtime Company employee named Preston Willard and delivered him to the prototype, who later experimented on him. At some point after that, Chum formed an alliance with Giblet and secretly became an informer inside the prototype's forces. And honestly, I think there's a reason for that. I believe Chum never truly wanted to follow the prototype. He only did it to survive. Because from everything we've seen, Chum doesn't act like someone cruel or power-hungry. He acts nervous, uncertain, almost scared. And there's another detail that I think is incredibly important. Chum understands technology. He knows how to repair systems, fix electronics, and even repair security equipment. At one point, he repairs a circuit box during the trip to engineering, and later, the prototype personally orders him to repair the lab's security system. But here's the thing. How would a child know how to do all of that? That's why I think Chum may not have originally been an orphan at all. I think he might have actually been a factory employee before becoming an experiment. Because otherwise, it's hard to explain how he understands advanced systems and engineering so well. There's also another interesting possibility. Chum communicates heavily through gestures and body language, and because he struggles to speak properly, it's possible he may have originally been mute before the experiments. One of the most important moments happens when the prototype orders Chum to find Poppy before she does something she'll regret. After that, Chum disappears from the story completely. And honestly, I seriously doubt he died. I don't think the prototype discovered that Chum was secretly helping Giblet. And I'm almost certain Chum will return in the next chapter. There's simply too much unfinished with his character. Especially because deep down, he doesn't feel like a monster. He feels like someone trapped in a nightmare trying to survive. There are also theories that Chum might actually belong to the Wuggy range line because of how similar he looks to Huggy Wuggy and Kissy Missy. Some concept art even made those similarities more obvious. And part of the Chapter 5 ARG showed Chum together with Huggy and Kissy, which later appeared again in a conditioning video inside the game. If that's true, Chum could potentially be Experiment 1171 or another hidden Wuggy experiment we still don't know about. And honestly, I really hope we see him again, because Chompkins might secretly be one of the most human characters left inside the factory. But what do you think? Do you like Chum? And do you think he'll return in the next chapter?